national importance, it's a subject that is open for interpretation. That is
Correct.
at least what my understanding is, right? Because think about it. The life is changing at an unprecedented speed. Look at AI, right?
Yep.
50% of the jobs are going to go away in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, people are giving different figures and whatever. What is a national importance today was probably not a national importance or considered as a national importance category whenever those particular laws came about, because it's something that keeps changing all the time.
Yes.
Hence, the question is, how do you prove that one person would serve for America's national interest?
There is a level of subjectivity to it, right?
Yeah.
And discretion is a very discretion-based application. You're dealing with a human being, right? An agent of USCIS who's going to be reviewing your petition, right? It's not like you have a panel. It's not like it goes through different people, right? It typically is one agent. It might get transferred to a different agent because, that other agent has too many cases. But in the end, you're dealing with a human being. So that level of subjectivity, plays a part of it, right? But in the end, they do have guidelines, right? And they have criteria they sort of guide themselves through, but they make the final determination. There's been sort of directives, right, and initiatives by administrations. This current administration put out a directive where essentially they said, hey, USCIS, we really want people that come from, the STEM background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Science, technology, engineering, et cetera, mathematics. So they say push to approve these type of people, right? We want these type of people in the United States. So very important is that, you have to demonstrate that it's going to have sort of an impact in the nation. And I know that might seem a little sort of intimidating as a word, right? Like, oh, I'm going to, impact the entire country. Not particularly, the entire country, but you might be a piece of a bigger pie, right? Mm-hmm. That is working towards that, right?
I really like the analogy of you might be a piece in a bigger picture.
Exactly.
You yourself may not be that big of a deal, not that hot shot,
right?
But when you put the profile together and everything, and whatever the current initiatives are, and wherever the economy is going, and maybe this type of person will be needed.
Yeah, for sure. So I was going to talk about an example, which this client, obviously I can't say for privacy issues anything too much in detail, but what he does is that essentially he does vertical farming.
Vertical
farming. So
vertical farming.
And what was basically the argument that we made is that essentially, in America, especially here in Florida, you're utilizing a lot of land, right? Which takes out a lot of resources like water, right? You're also sort of exploiting the land, right? And then you're taking a lot of resources, a lot of manpower is needed as well, right? And not only that, but there's a pretty huge percentage of imports that we bring in terms of, sort of vegetables, and all the, fruits and all the different things that, perhaps we're not that good at, growing in here. So what he does is that, he has, a big place where you can just have like stacks, right, of plants, and you grow them in there. And then it takes a substantially lower amount of, water, right? A substantially lower amount of actual pieces of land, right? And a substantially lower amount of manpower in order to produce, high yields of, vegetables and fruits that are of national importance to this country, right? It's nationally important. Now, part of the EB-2 NIW is that you have a proposed endeavor. You say, you're great. You already proved to me that you're great, right? Throughout different criteria. Now tell me, how are you going to do it? Right. So going back to, the analogy of the slice of the piece of the pie, we put forth, a proposed endeavor and where, in certain regions of Florida, he's going to be able to do this. And then this might permeate throughout the United States, and hopefully it will, right? Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to, it doesn't have to have sort of like a national impact already, right? Mm-hmm. From the get-go, but little by little, that idea is going to sort of spread out, and is going to hopefully, grow even more and expand even more, and then do what the purpose of the visa is, right? To bring in people who are going to make this country better.
What you're saying is very interesting, because proposed endeavor and, national interest, there's a level of subjectivity there. is it not so important then to work with an immigration attorney or immigration professionals who are really and truly can put the puzzle together and come up with the strategy, and that strategy would then be your pitch to the USCIS, right?
Yeah.
Give us a bit of an insight of what this institution is, who works there, and what are these people looking for with the NIW. So when you're putting these cases together, I don't know, do you need to make it as simple as possible, as understandable as possible? Because I assume that those visa officers who are reviewing the cases, they may or may not be as well versed about that particular area of expertise.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, maybe
you're
you need to dumb
right.
it down. I don't know.
USCIS is, it's a federal government entity. It's under the Department of Homeland Security. And then it's basically the entity that processes most of the applications for immigration.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to what we were originally sort of focusing on is that you're absolutely right. I mean, the people who are working there are not well versed in every single different field out there, right? Like,
of course,
you don't know
Neither
about
you
engineer,
are, nor I am.
nor am I. Exactly. So I might know legal immigration stuff, business immigration stuff. But I don't know about engineering. I don't know about IT. I'm horrible at technology. I ask you all the time, help me out here. I don't even know how to do this.
I know.
And but the key is that there's got to be sort of a balance, right? There's got to be, the ability to put it in layman terms when you're trying to make your arguments to the agents, to USCIS about your case. And at the same time, you have to be sort of very specific and detail oriented when you're working with professionals that know what they're doing. So they know and they sort of submerge themselves into your field. So they have a really good basis to go off and make their arguments in a manner that's going to be very well received by the agents who are going to be approving or denying these cases, right?
I mean, I guess this is what my understanding. What you're saying is, keep it simple, right? And make those people's jobs easier. Let's play a little game here. If you're a vendor, if you're selling me something, right? You will like me if I make you money, right? If I buy more from you, you'll be happy.
Right.
But if you're in a position where you're salaried, you're a government employee, you can't make money, the only way I can benefit you is to save your time. If person X is taking 50 minutes of your time or 2 hours of your time, and Aladdin shows up with the petition or whatever, look, I'm here 15 minutes. I'm giving you the essence of it. I got all the evidence and everything, but 15 minutes, I'm going to save you an amazing time. Here is everything detailed with all the evidence. And this is why it makes sense. Keep it very, very simple so that people can relate to and understand. Would you say that if you are to take an approach like this for your EB-1s, O-1s, or any other employment-based green cards, would the outcome be more positive?
So once again, like I said, there's
or
two.
am I just bullshitting?
Well,
there's two straight up.
Like I said, there's two schools of thought. Like I said, first off, you have to understand that at the same time, immigration attorneys are also sort of trying to cover their ass, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because and this is one of the major sort of and contentious topics within this discussion is that, if you submit something that is quote unquote simple, right, to make it easier for the agent at the same time, it might be rejected because you weren't thorough enough and you didn't put forth enough evidence, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back and say to you, because you didn't do your job correctly, right? I wasn't approved. Too. So it's like that balance.
Okay,
there's a balance to it, right?
There's no easy way out.
There's no easy way out, exactly.
There's no easy way out. You got to read that 1,000 pages, that's...
Well, I mean, they might not read the 1,000 pages, but, they might sort of go through what they think is important, right? But at least you're giving them a well-rounded sort of petition, and then they just might be of the school of thought where I think, memberships in distinguished organizations are more important, it might... out of all the criterias, right? Or remuneration, the amount of money that you make might be the most important to me. So they might focus, really in depth about that specific argument of that particular criteria. But at least you're giving them all the different criterias, all the different arguments for it. So that's why I tell you it's a very contentious debate within the immigration community, because some other ones are saying, you know, you're an idiot. You're wasting your time. You're wasting paper, you know, because you're not e-filing this stuff, for, at least for the EB-2
But right
NIW.
now they can, right?
No, not for the EB-2 NIW. You gotta mail it in. You gotta mail it in. So yeah, so it's you know, like a bulk like this.
I know.
So you know, this is like an ongoing thing.
I've been through all that stuff.